Thank you so very much to all of our student performers and the teachers who led them through this work. Truly amazing, beautiful, heartfelt. Thank you. And I also really wanted to say it is truly an honor for us at 185 to be able to welcome you all to what we call home here. Thank you so very much for being a part of our community. It's really great that we are able to host this event. Bibi, it's back to you.
Thank you, Principal Leong. This is wonderful. A round of applause for the performers, for the school, for the principal. Students, you did a fabulous job. What brilliance we have experienced. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining District 25's Community Education Council Town Hall this evening. My name is Bibi Madiden, and I am with the Office of Family and Community Empowerment. I'd like to take this moment to welcome all of you and make a few announcements regarding tonight's Town Hall meeting. Our staff will be handing out comment cards. Our staff will be handing out some comment cards as you see the staff walking around in the aisles of the auditorium. You can use these comment cards to write questions for the Chancellor's meeting tonight with Community Education Council 25. And you can return those comment cards back to New York City Public School employees that are walking around. But at this time, we would like to offer support for interpretation in 4 languages. We are offering interpretation this evening for Arabic, Spanish, Korean, and Mandarin. And at this time, I'd like to ask our interpreters to make the instructions and announcements of how you can collect the equipment for interpretation. We will start with Spanish.
Buenas tardes a todos. Soy Graciela Núñez Cholakis. Junto con Jacqueline Soto estaremos haciendo la interpretación en español. Si alguno de los presentes os gustaría escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor pasen a la parte de enfrente del auditorio a recoger los dispositivos auditivos. Una vez terminada la reunión, devolver en el mismo lugar. Gracias.
네, 안녕하십니까. 한국어 통역 서비스가 필요하신 분들은 저기 강당 뒤쪽에 가시면 통역 서비스를 제공하는 자리가 있사오니 그 자리에 가서 기기를 대여를 하시면 동시 통역 서비스를 이용하실 수 있으시게 됩니다. 감사합니다.
欢迎家长来到这边，我们今天有国语的翻译的服务。如果你需要那个国语的翻译的话呢，你可以在后面跟我们的工作人员拿机器，然后在你用完我们的翻译服务的时候呢，你可以把机器还给我们的工作人员。谢谢。
مساء الخير. نرحب بجميع السادة الراغبين في الاستماع الترجمة باللغة العربية. يرجى التوجه إلى المائدة في الخلف لأخذ سماعة للاستماع على الترجمة الفورية باللغة العربية. مرة أخرى على السادة الراغبين في الاستماع على الترجمة الفورية باللغة العربية التوجه إلى الطاولة في الخلف لأخذ سماعة للاستماع للترجمة وشكرا.
Thank you, interpreters. And as I mentioned before, the council has collected questions from the community, and you are also able to ask a question this evening by using the comment cards. Families who are viewing the town hall live stream also have an opportunity to have their questions in the question and answer. Those questions will be given to the council as well. It is important for all of our families to be able to participate, and we are very grateful for the interpreters who you heard made the announcements in Mandarin, Korean, Spanish, and Arabic. Now that I've shared how this evening's town hall will proceed, I'd like to turn it over to the Community Education Council President, Ms. Eden Rubenstein, who will be moderating the evening tonight. Eden?
Good evening, everyone. Town Hall with our special guest of the night, Chancellor Melissa Aviles Ramos. We're very excited to be kicking off the series of town halls the Chancellor will be taking part in this year, and welcome her to District 20. Our council needs the voices of District 25 families. We need your guidance, and that is why we are so excited to host this town hall with the Chancellor. We thank you for your attendance and dedication to the district students and families. At this time, I want to just quickly introduce our council members. I have Sung Shirley Lee, Alvin Hung, John Stewart, Catherine St. Pierre, Mr. Joseph Chow, Wendy Wing Yu, Robert Wazor.
Members that volunteered to be here tonight, along with dozens of students that came here to make sure that tonight was a success. So thank you so much to all of our staff members that are here. I truly appreciate your presence to make sure that we have a really successful evening tonight. Big shout out to all of our students, from our cheerleaders to our choir, to our band, to our orchestra. You guys did an amazing job, and it was a terrific way to start off such an amazing event. As we're waiting to begin tonight, there's just a few things that I want to take advantage of this opportunity to speak to you about. So anytime I'm in the company of our parents, I always like to talk a little bit about what we're trying to get accomplished as a district community. So as a community, we've established a series of goals aligned with the expectations from our Chancellor. And one of the most important spaces of our work is dedicated to literacy. Literacy to make sure that our youngest of learners from 3K all the way to grade 3 learn those basic foundational skills to become really skilled readers by the time they get into 3rd grade. Because what we do know is that for our kids, when they get to the 3rd grade as proficient readers, we're setting them up for success moving forward. So one of our big priorities here in District 25, and this is priority number 1, is that all students learn to read well. And here in our district, the way that we're engaging in that process is not only to support foundational skills, but to do that using what we call decodable text. That's text to make sure that our kids are learning those foundational spaces to grow as learners using text that aligns with the skills that they've learned. So for us, really an important priority. Priority number 2, and this will likely come up in conversation today, is around the social emotional learning support for our children. Certainly academics is extremely important, but so too is making sure that our children learn how to manage their behaviors, make sure that they're aware of what those behaviors are, to make really good, responsible decisions, and learn how to use those skills to build positive relationships with others. So as a district community, we're really focused on that across our schools. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is what I'm challenging our students to do. I'm challenging our students, especially in our middle schools, to establish their own plan for how do we make sure that inside of our buildings, we're learning how to manage and build those relationships with each other as middle schoolers. Middle school, and specifically we're here at JHS 185, tends to be a difficult set of years for kids in grades 6, 7, and 8. And one of the important things that we get to do every day, and what our teachers get to do every day, is build our kids as learners, but also just as important to build them in terms of their character, their ability to be respectful, kind human beings. And that's what one of our goals is here at the district level, for our students to take on action projects that really promote that across our schools. Third, to create a high quality academic experience, what you're going to see inside of our schools, families as well, to offer that feedback and to provide those recommendations for how we get better. So one of my core values as a superintendent and just as a leader in general is that we learn more by engaging in conversation than we do by me just telling you what I think. Me just telling you what I think is not necessarily going to support the improvement that's necessary. So one of my core values is that we cannot learn as a group unless we're learning to grow individually by ourselves. When we grow individually, we can learn collectively. And for me, being part of the CEC and having an opportunity to participate with these amazing members, is allowing us to make really, really good choices for our district community. So I truly thank you guys for participating in that work with me. Parent engagement is super important here in District 25. And one of the things that you will hopefully have had an opportunity to participate in your own schools is something that we refer to as parent chats. Parent chats here in the district. And if you haven't, I encourage you to reach out to your building leaders. Parent chats here in District 25 create an opportunity for parents across District 25 to engage with our building leaders in a way that allows them to provide feedback to our schools. What is it that they can share in terms of a variety of areas, from building inclusive school communities, from working on improvement in chronic absenteeism, which I'm going to mention next as our last priority for this school year. But the goal is to receive that feedback from you as parents. Absent that feedback, there is a little bit of a gap in terms of what our next steps can be. As while we have your children for a very long period of time, you are with them the other half of that time, and you know your children far better than we, and gives us an opportunity to learn from you in terms of how we can support them best. And lastly, our final goal that we have as in District 25 is connected to chronic absenteeism. This goal is extremely important to me as a district leader, because one of the things that I do know for sure is that when our children aren't in school, they cannot possibly keep up with the academics. What I'm thrilled about is, to this point, our attendance is up over 95% as a district-wide community. Among the top attendance rates amongst all districts in New York City. We are in the top 2 in New York City. We actually tied for second with another district in New York City in terms of attendance. We've also managed to this point, and I say to this point, to reduce our chronic absenteeism rates by almost 4% across all of our district schools as of November, which is really so important for our kids. And the one grade that I find to be most important for us to attend to is kindergarten and pre-K. Both of those grades have the highest rates of attendance concerns, and it's something that we're focused on heavily as a district community. So I think, yes. So given that information for us as a district community, what you'll see our schools engaging in, we have something called case teams. And these teams are dedicated to making sure that they're connecting with our parents on a daily basis to provide support for any of our children that are absent on a frequent basis. So those supports are available to them to make sure that our kids are ready to learn every single day. So that is just a small little briefing as our Chancellor comes to join us this evening, and I'm looking forward for her to join momentarily. So thank you very much, and we'll be with you in just a few moments.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. So this evening, we will answer as many questions as we can. On behalf of CEC 25, I thank you again for your attendance and dedication to all students and families. It is now our pleasure to welcome Chancellor Melissa Aviles Ramos. Careful, careful.
Excellent.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am so sorry for being late. I had to make a stop in the Bronx and before that in Manhattan and just making my tours all around the city. So thank you so much for being patient. But it is really just amazing to be here in this incredible, diverse district with all the great work that's happening. And I want to thank our superintendent, Dr. Michael Dentona, for all of his work. Nice rounds of applause for him and our principals. Absolutely. So again, honored to be here all with you tonight. And I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time in this district. We also have our team with us tonight. So you have a bunch of our deputy chancellors and chiefs and all the people who help us to keep things moving over at Central. So rounds of applause for them. Want to thank them for being here. So before we begin the meeting, I want to highlight that we are entering CEC, election season, and it's super important. This work cannot be done alone. You know, in the past, we have really charged face with talking about the importance of our CECs and why we should really pay attention to these elections. Not only we're hoping that you run, but also the importance of the work that CECs do day in and day out and how they work in close partnership with our superintendents. And this particular one is a great example of what happens when great collaboration is in place. And so we are really charging everyone with talking about the work that CECs do and how important it is, from our principals to our superintendents, to our parent coordinators, to our central staff, to our family leaders, everyone. So please, 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 just really understanding how important this is. This is your opportunity. This is an important structure for us to have real collaboration with our superintendent and central leaders to get work done, from curriculum implementation to assessment to topics around safety and wellness. These structures exist for that purpose. And so I just really want to encourage everyone to take that seriously, and thank you for your continued participation. I want to share a little bit about myself since I'm new to this. I made 1 month on Friday. It's been quite the month. Thank you. So not quite yet a toddler, but I'm inching my way there. And so when I was lucky enough to be announced by Mayor Adams and really selected by both him and former Chancellor David Banks to take on this role, one of the things that I was clear about is making sure that we do not turn up a system in the middle of a school year. That is so important to me. I was a teacher, I was an assistant principal, I was a principal, I was a deputy superintendent, an acting superintendent, and I've lived through quite a few transitions. And it is not a good feeling when you are off to a good start and all of a sudden someone comes and tells you, hold on a second, now you need to change your priorities because we're going to shift to a whole other set of agenda items. That is not good for children. That is not good for families. It is not good for school communities. And so the message that I said on the day of my announcement stands today, and it will continue during my time as chancellor. We are going to continue the great work that started with this administration, because who doesn't want kids to learn how to read? Who doesn't want kids to learn how to do math? Who doesn't want access to great careers after graduation? These are things that any educator would want for their children. And so please know that you have a continued partner in me and all the amazing work that has started. And this district has done incredible work with New York City Reads. And so we're so proud to continue that work. What I will say is that there are some focus areas that always need more. The reason I was very intentional around the word commitment is because I don't want to use EduSpeak, like priorities or initiatives. These are not priorities. These are not initiatives. These are just promises, quite simply, that I'm making to all of you, to our New York City families and students, as the mother of a New York City student myself, and as someone who will consider herself a forever teacher. So these 3 commitments are as follows. The first one is an overall sense of safety and wellness for our children, both physical and emotional safety. Our children can have the best access to instruction, the best access to programs, but if they do not feel safe and loved when they are coming into these school communities, they are not going to perform at the optimal levels. It's just not going to happen. So that's commitment number one. Commitment number two is real job embedded support, training, and professional learning for our teachers. And we've seen a lot of that start with New York City Reads, real coaching. How do you unpack a curriculum, right? It's not just taking it out of a box and saying, okay, now go teach. Here's the pacing guide. We know that teachers need support with lesson plans. We know teachers need support with implementation. We know teachers need support with tier 2 and tier 3 modifications. Is everything perfect? Nope. Are we off to a perfect start with New York City Reads or with anything else? No, we're not. Nothing is perfect, especially in a system this size. But what we do know is when we prioritize teacher support, we have a place to turn to. We have a focus area to say, you know what, if we're really centering teacher practice, we need to make sure that we are partnering with our labor leaders. I'm so happy to see we have some of our amazing coaches here, and we have our Vice President, Mary Vaccaro, here. So big round of applause for them. But this work cannot be done without them. And so this is not about fighting and arguing with other partners, with our labor leaders in particular. This is about coming together and identifying the best practices and the great work that teachers and coaches are currently doing, and making sure that we are sharing that across the city in a systematic way so that our teachers can get access to the very best training that exists here in New York City Public Schools. The third commitment is one that is very, very important to me. They are all important to me, but this one I think resonates with me most because I've experienced it myself. When I was a teacher, I was not a mother. And when I was a principal, I was the mother of an infant toddler. As a matter of fact, my right hand for many years, my assistant principal, Bienvenido Hernandez, is here with us tonight. So it's great to see you. Yay! And it wasn't until I got to Central and the district that I became the mother of a school-age child. And my daughter is a struggling reader. She's doing much better this year, but it was a really long road during COVID and after COVID. And I myself struggled to navigate the system as a mother. And I said to myself, in my very privileged position with all the institutional knowledge that I have, if I struggle to navigate the system, what does that mean for other parents? So we are shifting from family engagement to family empowerment because no parents should not be sitting at the table while we're making decisions for their child's education. And after experience my role and continuing, because my daughter's still part of New York City Public Schools, we need to do better as a system to make sure that we are empowering all of you to advocate for your children in the way that you know best. So again, those are my 3 commitment areas. They are not derailing us from any of the amazing work that we started. We certainly are not going to change anything up in the middle of the year, but it is incredibly important to me that we double down on those 3 areas, because if we get those 3 areas right, everything else that we've been working on is going to have even more impact. So I am so thrilled to be here with all of you tonight. Again, I apologize for being late. And I thank you for giving me space to share some of my thoughts with you. And I look forward to hearing from all of you tonight. And my team is also here to support us with any of your questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. We will now begin to ask questions that we have received surveying our community and through the town hall pre-registration.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for tonight's town hall. My name is Song and Shirley Lee. And it is my pleasure to present the first question. And my question is, what is your plan to reduce class size and meet the demands for class size law? And given building limitations in city, how will it be implemented?
That's a great question, one that continues to come up. So we know that we are currently in compliance for this year. But we do know that the years ahead are challenging. And so most recently, we announced that we are doing what we know is best, which is when we give schools an opportunity to work at the school level to try to resolve their issues. And I want to thank again our labor partners because we were able to make this announcement because of their collaboration with us. And so essentially what we're saying to principals and superintendents is take a look at your program. Tell us where you need more teachers. Tell us where you need to convert classrooms into, offices into classrooms or other space into classroom. Tell us what can be fixed at the school level. And if once those plans are reviewed by us and our labor partners, then there is funding that will be attached to support schools in resolving those issues. Now, we know there's a tough road ahead. There are other schools that are going to require some additional resources with capital planning. And there are things in the law with respect to exemptions. And so we're taking a look at those on a case-by-case basis. But I think the key here is that we are coming here with a problem-solving mentality and working really, really closely with our labor partners. And this first announcement is a huge step in the right direction, making sure that we are giving schools the opportunity in partnership with their district superintendents to resolve what can be resolved at that level and then take everything from a case-by-case basis.
Good evening, everyone. So here in District 25, as part of the class size law, we have been working on this with our building leaders from across the district. This year in particular, we have upwards of a dozen schools that have already started engaging in this by establishing additional classes inside of their buildings to comply with the expectations of the state law. And given this latest announcement by our Chancellor, we're also engaging in this process of ongoing discussions with our buildings. And we have another additional 15 schools that are working towards this end next year to build in additional class size reduction inside of our buildings. So we're working towards that. In addition to the idea of reducing class sizes, we do have two brand new additions that have opened this year. One with 169 and Bell Academy just had a recent new addition. PS 32 just recently had a new addition, and we have a few new schools that will be coming on board over the next couple of years to add to additional school space to support class size reduction here in District 25.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is John Stewart. I'm Borough President Richards' appointee on the board. We had a question from the community about gifted and talented programs. The question is, do you have any plans to expand or at least improve access to G&T programs throughout the city?
Thank you. So this has been an ongoing conversation for the last few administrations. And what I will say is that we listen to communities. Part of the reason why I am doing our listening tours is because we really want to get a feel for the different neighborhoods within the boroughs and what best suits those districts. So what I will say is that in the moment we are engaging, we are listening, and then we will make adjustments as needed. But you have a commitment from me to listen based on what the community need is.
Good evening, everyone. Just to talk a little bit about District 25. Here in District 25, we have 6 gifted and talented programs across the district that stretches from the north, central, and south side of our community. We did add a gifted and talented program a couple of years ago to add to what we already currently have. And the one thing that I'll say is we had additional programs in the past that unfortunately did have to close because of ensuring that we had full capacity of enrollment. So as we move forward, certainly being able to engage in the conversation around additional G&T programs, but it's also important that as we start thinking about that, that we do have all of those classes full and enrolled.
So the next question for you. There is an increasing need for IEPs within the school system. Currently, the system is not able to provide services to all families that need IEPs. IEP evaluation and implementation timelines often result in students not receiving services in a timely manner. How would you propose improving the DOE's IEP process to better provide the services needed?
I'm really excited that this question is coming up. First of all, I am joined by our Deputy Chancellor for the Division of Inclusive and Accessible Learning, Christina Foti, who many of you know because she's been an advocate and huge supporter for our students with IEPs for many years. But what I will say is that we absolutely know that the support for our students with IEPs is something that we constantly have to work at. And that's precisely the reason why we created our DIAL division. So I am going to pass the mic over to Christina to talk a little bit more about the work that we are currently doing. But in terms of needing to improve, we know that, and that's why we work day in and day out with DIAL to really move the needle on this work. So Dr. Foti.
Thank you, Chancellor. So I want to first say thanks to all of you and Superintendent D'Antona. District 25 is at the forefront of that improvement. And for the past several years, District 25 has led some of our outcomes and service provision rates for students with disabilities. I want to let you know that as of a recent poll, D25 is 95% fully served. The year is not over yet. I think that you are absolutely going to be very quickly at 100% full service provision in D25 for special education services. So I know that's going to be happening imminently. Over 96% of their students receiving all related services. And I know that you're working with families who have not yet received those services to ensure that RSAs are in place so they could receive those services outside of school. But really, District 25 has been leading the pack on special education services, and we're really, really grateful for all the work the district has done. You're the epicenter of continuous NEST programs. You serve kids in NEST from K to 12. You are providing sensory gyms in this district. You are providing Horizon program. So there are a wealth of inclusive options in D25 that we feel really proud of. And Superintendent, I don't know if you want to add anything, but really, you clearly are figuring this out. And so congratulations to you and thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Chief Foti, Deputy Chancellor Foti, excuse me. So yeah, here in District 25, you know, and listen, I'm a parent. I have an 8th grader and I have a 10th grader. I did go through the IEP process myself with my daughter. So I do first and foremost understand what it is like for a parent to go through the space of learning. You know, what do I ask? How do I ask it? Do I have the ability to ask those questions? So first and foremost, one of the things that I think is most important about our work in the district is the collaboration that we have right here with our CEC. So a couple of years ago, because of the relationship with our CEC, it's been now added to our bylaws, the bylaws from the CEC, that there is a special education meeting and training that exists where we collaborate, meaning someone from our district team provides support so that our parents have an understanding of what the IEP process is and how is it that we can support. But because of the success of that particular training session, we expanded that beyond that space and added an additional series of professional learning opportunities for our parents so they understand the IEP process. What is it that we need to know and how is it that they can be supported? And these have been pretty well attended over the past few years, and I'm really excited about that. So another question was around just the timeliness of, you know, I'm proud to say that at this point, we have 100% of our IEPs have been completed in a timely fashion here in District 25 to date here in November, with the median number of days of 23 days to complete the IEP process for our kids. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that our district been able to do that to date. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to expand our work as a district community.
Good evening and welcome to our district, Chancellor Aviles Ramos. My name is Catherine St. Pierre and I'm the recording secretary for the Community Education Council here in the district. And one of the questions we received from our parent outreach was that a lot of parents are concerned about school lunches. How do you plan to improve school lunch variety, quality, and nutritional value? Is it possible to change food suppliers or allow schools to choose their own?
Oh, see, this is what I love. Kevin doesn't even wait, he just jumps up. He's so excited to talk about school food.
Yes, Kevin Moran from School Operations. Catherine, thank you for the question. This is something we think about daily. I do know our supervisors here in the district, Gail, I believe, is here. And we talk to principals about going to our test kitchen, first and foremost, to have kids try the menu items that we're developing. These are now scratch recipes. These are locally sourced ideas. We just launched a survey. The most important part about our menu development is parent and student voice. So I've met with students in schools, I've met with cafeteria workers in schools and principals about how we better get your feedback. So even if you just Googled NYC DOE school food menu survey, you can go there now and actually do it as we sit here. For the students, don't worry, it's perfectly all right. We take everybody's feedback. It's anonymous. Anything you want to say, if the food's not good, say it. If you want something else, say it. We're launching little palm cards that we'll give out at meetings like this, little scan codes, you could use them, and then posters and do a little bit more media and advertising about it. But it's very important to us. So if there are individuals that want to talk specifically about the things we can improve on, I will be here. I'll leave my email, my cell phone, and make sure that our team comes out to one of the meetings where we could talk to more principals about what the students are saying they want to see more of on the menu and maybe less of on the menu. One of the bigger things we're doing is our cafeteria enhancement experience, where we're changing the service lines in schools, gives us a different variety, and it does give us options to look and source differently. So for that, we'd love to come back and circle back and see what you're thinking about. But thank you very much for the question.
So if I can also just quickly add, we have a really, really nice relationship with the Office of School Food. And this very school happens to be one that engaged in the tasting. So the Office of School Food came here to 185 and they engaged in a menu item tasting to provide feedback to the Office of School Food. And I'm really excited that we have 6 additional tastings that are coming up in other schools. So that, you know, our kids can give feedback to those that are providing the food services to them.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Wendy Yu. I'm currently the treasurer on the CEC. Welcome, Chancellor Aviles Ramos. My question surrounds digital testing. As digital testing takes place in all our schools in all grades, sometimes students need assistance to log on or technology fails. Can paper testing be reinstated throughout the city or at least be given as an option, allowing students to choose which medium suits their test-taking abilities best? Many students will give more accurate answers because it's easier to recheck their work on paper and annotate text in math word problems than it is on the screen.
Thank you for the question. So we have with us tonight, we have our Deputy Chancellor for Division of School Leadership, Dr. Donica Rux, and we also have Dr. Mia Pate, who leads our academics. But before I turn it over to either or both of them, I don't know who's, if we're going to do a freestyle or first deputy, we just have all the experts in the room. But what I will say is this. both approaches have pros and cons. And I want us to be cognizant of that. There is room for human error in paper collection as well. And so I just want us to think about both pros and cons for both sides, but I'm going to pass it over to First Deputy Chancellor Weisberg.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody. Dan Weisberg, First Deputy Chancellor. It's great to be out here in Queens. Oh, look at that. Mary Vercaro is here. Wow. She snuck up on me.
You weren't listening to
Our
me,
partner
First Deputy. I
from
shut
UFT.
my mouth.
Okay, but we're going to talk about digital testing. So the quick answer, and you know, we always want to be really clear and not just give you bureaucratic language. The testing is moving towards digital. That's a national trend, and so you'll notice, and I'm sure many of your children, if you have high school age children in particular, like the superintendent, know ACT, SAT, AP exams, and now our state exams. Some of you may have children who took a digital version of the 3 to 8 ELA or math exam, the science exam. It's moving towards digital. And so certainly if you have a child with an accommodation, 504, an IEP that requires paper version, absolutely, that will be available for every single one of those children. No questions asked. We'll make sure that's available. If there's any problems with that, let us know. For the other kids who don't have that level of accommodation, we're in a transition period, but so much is happening on digital that actually, you know, we feel like the weight is moving towards a situation where it's going to be disadvantageous. As the Chancellor says, there's always upsides and downsides to both, but so much of what our kids are doing is digital these days. If we gave paper exams, which we still are doing, they're getting phased out, we feel like more kids are at this point going to be uncomfortable with the paper. Here's the other thing. And you made, we're happy to show you some demos on this for anybody on a CEC who's interested. There are some enhancements. There's some functionality in the digital version, which is actually helpful. There's text to voice and voice to text that's very helpful. There's a highlighting feature. There's an elimination of answers features that are helpful to a lot of children. Even if they don't have a 504, it may be easier for them digitally. And I think as the time goes on, there's going to be more and more functions added that are going to make digital even more advantageous. But just to say, we totally understand that some children are still at the stage where digital is new. But I think as time goes on, there's going to be fewer and fewer children who, even if you gave everybody the option, we're going to choose paper and pencil. But thank you very much for the question.
And if I can just quickly add, here in districts, our kids at very young ages, and I know it was mentioned from kindergarten forward, yes, our children in kindergarten do have access to programs like iReady. They do have access to programs like HMH that do create space for engaging in digital work. But that's not the only thing that they have an opportunity to do during the day. There are paper-based documents that support the curriculum, as well as other assessments that happen throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, that our children are not necessarily always digital-based. It is a space that we are certainly moving forward with, but it's not the only form of assessment that is currently happening either in the district.
Hello. Hi, Chancellor Villas-Ramos. My name is Bob Wazorek. Welcome to Queens and District 25. Question here has got two parts. The first is, what are your goals and visions for our schools now that you've taken on this new role? And how will your chancellorship differ from that of former Chancellor Banks?
So what I want for all of our schools is, quite frankly, what I want for my own child. I want warm, safe, welcoming environments for all of our children, where strong, culturally responsive pedagogy drives academic discourse, where our young people feel safe to express who they are and to explore their interests and passions and get ready for outstanding careers that are going to lead to economic stability and growth in our communities, particularly amongst our most marginalized children. And so in terms of what will make my chancellorship different from my predecessor is that when my predecessor started, it was January 2022. And it was the start of a new administration. This is really a year of impact. We have to pay attention to all of the initiatives that we have started, all of the priorities that we have laid out. And we need to really make sure that things are working and that we're fixing what's not working. I want to go back to those 3 commitments that I made. I do not intend to change anything that doesn't need to be changed. This is not about putting in a vision that I think needs to happen without input from the community. What I just mapped out is what I would expect for our schools to be and what many of our schools already are. But simply put, in order for us to accomplish that, we need to pay attention to what's happening on the ground. We need to make sure that teachers are supported. We need to make sure that principals are given the tools that they need to run great schools. We need to make sure that families are empowered. We need to make sure that the initiatives that we have invested in are actually working. We need to partner with our labor partners to make sure that we are paying attention to all the things that are happening on the ground. And so this is not about me bringing in brand new costly initiatives. There are going to be some additional supports that we put in place aligned with the 3 commitments, and I'm excited to talk more about that in the coming weeks. But really, this is about impact, ladies and gentlemen. This is about making sure that the investments that we made early on in this administration are actually working and having impact for your children, for our children.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chancellor Aviles Ramos. My name is Alvin Hung, and I'm the 2nd Vice President of CEC District 25. My question to you tonight is, now that you've been appointed Chancellor of New York City Department of Education, how will your approach to addressing the needs of parents different from your predecessors? Additionally, how do you plan to work with the UFT and manage the various sub-departments within the DOE?
Family empowerment is very important to me, which is why it is one of the 3 commitments that I have been talking about regularly. Again, as a parent myself, I want to make sure that all of our families feel heard and that whatever issues they are experiencing at the school level, that we are really thinking about how we can address those issues, particularly when they are not specific to 1 or 2 families. If we're seeing trends, if we're seeing patterns that are impacting families, then what is it that we need to do to address those from a central level as opposed to a local one? I really think for me that work cannot happen without talking about our labor partners. And so long before I was Chancellor, I have worked very closely with the UFT. It's one of the many reasons why I'm able to pick out our amazing Vice President in the crowd, because she hasn't been able to get rid of me for about 5 or 6 years. But as much as we joke about that, the partnership with our labor leaders is essential to family empowerment, because whatever systems and structures we are putting in place, we need to make sure that they are supporting our teachers and principals so that they can run great schools and deliver great instruction for our children. And so I don't think these things can be done in isolation. Family empowerment is closely tied to the work that we do with our labor partners.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shirley Jang, and I'm a student representative for CEC 25. So for our next question is, the CSA is one of the largest departments within DOE. How do you plan to make this department work more efficiently and prevent delays in essential projects from taking place, such as bathroom renovations and others from reaching completion in a timely manner?
Thank you so much. And again, I see Kevin already inching up so he can. Kevin loves to talk about construction and school food.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Excellent question. Off the top, the School Construction Authority is an independent authority, not a New York City Department of Education division or office. It was created by the state legislature back in 1988. What I would say is there's a great opportunity for us within our operations team to collaborate with the School Construction Authority on advancing projects. They've coming off their last year, 24-25, they added 24 new school buildings across the city. That's the most they put out since 2003. And the development and acceptance of the latest capital plan allows us to make in excess of 35,000 seats in the next capital plan. So they're working hard and doing a great job out there. For us, how do we free up space to do things like bathroom renovations, gymnasium renovations, auditorium reservations, and so for us, these projects all require time and effort. And when you're running a school building, time is of the essence. So there's a Beacon after school program. There's a morning tutoring prep program. And obviously the full day is packed. And then there's summarizing. And then, so there's a lot of opportunities for us to look at schedules. But I will say this, on Wednesday of this week at 3:00, I have a meeting with the School Construction Authority to front load all of our projects and commitments for this year coming up. On process, just how a project works in a school, we do get a lot of commitments and grants out there that come into our schools, and principals eagerly wait for those projects to kick off. We schedule a meeting with our partners at the UFT for a health and safety meeting before we do a single thing through a school. And then we start a project as soon as it's funded and we get work. And so if there are priorities and projects within the district, this is very exciting to our team more broadly, how we make an impact, but ultimately do it while schools are not impacted negatively, at least for the instructional program and after school programs continue unimpeded. In a perfect world, we'd be able to empty a building for a year and just go triple shifts and finish. But we run schools, and it's the opportunity to have kids stay in their building while we get these things accomplished. So specific questions, I'll stay back. If there's projects or projects you look to do, you have some. I'm one for crazy ideas for greenhouses and pools and fields, Dan knows. So if it's about capital planning, love to partner. And anytime I come back with the School Construction Authority for the district, if there's projects we can work on together, we'd be delighted to come back. Thank you.
Let me just add for a second. I know it's something the Chancellor cares a lot about. Kevin is incredibly passionate about this. I am as well. The environment matters. The learning environment matters, right? It matters whether you're in a building where it's lit well, like this beautiful auditorium is maintained well. When we have if we have a cafeteria enhancement, I don't know if there are any cafeteria enhancements in 25. It's an amazing thing. And we are sending a message to our students one way and our staff one way or the other. If it's a beautiful facility like this, what we're saying is we value you, we care. It matters to us a lot what kind of environment you're learning in. And although our facilities folks are always going to make sure that the facilities are safe, well maintained, if they're not as beautiful as this, we're also sending a message. The kids are going to take that as we don't care as much about you. So one of the things I would say, you're a student leader. If there are issues in your building, organize the students, come forward, come meet with the superintendent. I'm sure he's going to meet with you to say, listen, DSF or SCAs come in, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. What we really care about is bottle fillers, or what we really care about is replacing the turf, outside, or what we really care about is the lighting in our classrooms or what have you. Trust me, what we want to do under this chancellor is be very, very responsive to those sorts of asks that come from you, the students, that come from the local staff, that come from the local parents. This is something we really want to put in place citywide. So I'm guessing behind your question, there's something in your school building or in your classmates' school buildings where you're like, yeah, I wish they could just fix that. Please let us know. let us know, and we will be as responsive as we possibly can to make sure we address it. Thank you.
And if I can also just quickly add, really appreciate the projects that we've most recently added to our school. We just had a ribbon cutting, as I mentioned earlier, at PS 32, and another ribbon cutting at 169 in Bell Academy. And I can tell you that they're, just walking through the entry of each of these buildings, it does give you that different sense of how you feel about the learning environment. So we do appreciate those projects and all the work that went into making them a reality.
Joe.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Chow, CEC member. We have some additional questions from the parents. I've read in the newspapers that the panel for education policy has delayed voting on the SHSAT contract several times. There's talk about holding a town hall on continuing the SHSAT. This is unnecessary because the law requires SHSAT to be used. What is the plan? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And specifically, so you are 100% right. You are 100% right. He wants me, I love that. He's a representative, a true representative of the people. He wants me to face this way, but I feel uncomfortable showing him my back. That's just the way I was brought up. So exactly right. State law says that the admissions process for our specialized high schools, Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, and 4 others, has to be through an exam and exclusively through an exam. That's the SHSAT. What we have is a contract coming up for approval to continue that exam, essentially. And I have been very clear to the PEP members, and they understand this, that if we want to maintain these schools, and of course, these are some of our most popular schools in the entire city. So obviously we want to have these schools continue to be maintained and thrive and be available for new generations of kids. We have to have a contract so that the test can be administered. If we don't have that, there's no incoming class in these specialized high schools and the schools can't continue. So we still have plenty of time to get it approved. We will make sure that that is going to be on the agenda. The PEP members will be very well informed about the stakes of this. And I'm very confident that folks are going to come out and express their opinions on this. But we are well aware of the stakes here, and we are going to make sure that the PEP members are aware as well.
I'm sorry, I just have a follow-up question. What if it doesn't get approved? Is there a plan?
If it were to not get approved, which I don't expect to happen, then we would bring it back and address whatever issues that PEP members had, and then get it passed. As we said, the schools cannot continue if there is no exam. Then there can be no incoming class. I haven't heard from PEP members in any significant way that that's what they want to do to these schools. So I'm optimistic, but we understand that we have to have a SHSAT in place in order for the schools to continue to operate.
Thank you.
We have another question here from our guests in the audience. Are you considering a return of spelling as our elementary kids start losing the skills? There will be any opportunity to add it to the current HMH curriculum?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I heard the question correctly. You're asking about spelling specifically?
I believe it. Yes, I believe it's a question about a return of practicing spelling.
Great. So
It's-
before I turn it over to Dr. Pate, what I do want to say is that students through the science of reading and really being intentional around our approach to literacy, students are learning spelling. They are learning grammar. This is part of the reason why the science of reading is so important to us. But I'm going to turn it over to our expert so that way she can speak a little bit more about the curriculum.
Hi, hello. My name is Dr. Pate. I am the Executive Chief of Academics and Instruction for New York City Public Schools. So I want to just address it in two ways. And I think every question that I address tonight, I'm going to address it in two ways. So first, as a mother, my son is in high school and he is currently preparing for the spelling bee. So the spelling bee is something I think historically has existed in New York City schools since I was in elementary school at PS 256 in Brooklyn. I never made it to the citywide spelling bee, but I tried my best. And to this day, I will say that spelling is critically important to the work that we embed in the learning and within the curriculum. So spelling bees, the importance around spelling is going nowhere as of now. We love the spelling bee across the city and district. So we will continue to make spelling like this priority that we do with students.
Hi, good evening again. We have a question from the audience. What concrete steps are being taken or will be taken to address bullying and related behaviors that often hinder learning and growth of students?
That's a really great question. And before we turn it over to Chief Rampersant, one of the reasons why we are going to make safety and wellness one of our commitments is because we also know that hurt people. And while we need to ensure that that we are correcting bullying behaviors, we also need to get to the root cause of the issue and why students are bullying so that that behavior does not persist. And when students feel safe and welcome in buildings, and we make safety and emotional wellness a priority and a non-negotiable, to be frank, then the students who come into the school building thinking that bullying is acceptable will quickly have to learn that that behavior is not tolerated. And so we continue to have things in place to address bullying, and we're going to let Chief Rampersant talk about them. But I also want to note that this is a place where we need to partner with our communities, so that way we have an understanding that safe places need to exist, and that bullying is a non-negotiable. But we also need to not treat the symptom and treat the root cause of the issue. So, Chief Rampersant.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mark Rampersant. I'm the Chief of Safety and Prevention Partnerships, and it is my pleasure to be here before you this evening. As we think about bullying as a whole, I'm glad to hear the Chancellor just I want to echo those sentiments of hurt people hurting people. And many of our young people who are experiencing bullying are experiencing bullying from a young person who may have been bullied themselves, right? And so I'm not going to go into all of the circumstances around bullying, but I will say to you this. In New York City public schools, we are zero tolerance as it relates to bullying. We've done the work. Every one of our New York City public schools has a respect for all liaison in the building. And that person is geared toward providing supports for any young person who feels bullied, harassed, or intimidated, discriminated, or otherwise. In every area in the building, on every floor, there should be signage up that outlines who the Respect for All liaison is, where that person be located, and the hours of the availability for this person. One of the other things that I want to remind you of, and you remind every one of the young people in the building, is in every one of our respective schools, the adults, the caring adults, are the people you go to if you feel bullied. We've doubled down in New York City public schools. And not only did we make it easier for parents to report bullying, we made it easier for students to report bullying as well. So you don't even have to walk into a New York City public school to report bullying. You can do it right from your cell phone. You can report cases of bullying right from your cell phone, and we encourage families to do so if there's any evidence of a student being bullied. And every bit of that goes directly into our system, which sends the principal a prompt that literally says there has been a bullying report administered on behalf of this young person. And there are a number of steps that the principal must take before we can close out a bullying case with a final disposition. And if we find out that a young person is in fact bullied in our respective school, we are required to do what is called a safety plan, an individual safety plan for that student, where that young person is checked into on a daily basis by one of the caring adults. Parents immediately get notified, and you do get an immediate response back from your report from your cell phone. So there are a number of things that we're doing in New York City Public Schools to keep young people safe. But one of the things that I would remind you of again and again is that every caring adult is the point of contact for any young person who feels bullied in a New York City Public School. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I may too, just here in District 25, just to echo the response, we also, across all of our schools, we have a common social emotional learning program that's being implemented across our buildings to really promote those positive behaviors for our kids. We also have what we refer to as a CASE team. The CASE team stands for Culture, Attendance, and Social Emotional Learning Teams. These teams are really dedicated to gathering information from our kids to help support developing an environment that really promotes those positive behaviors for our learners. So as feedback comes in from our children, provided that there is a concern around bullying or conflict, the goal is that this team connects with our counselors to provide that additional support as necessary so that our students are provided with the services that they need.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. So just a little update. We're going to be kind of going through about 2 or 3 more questions, and then we're going to be closing up. So I'm going to have the council members continue.
I have a public comment here from a parent dealing with like moving forward with the digital age. How can we return back to basics, spelling, writing skills back to our schools, along with the reading comprehension, cursive writing, and also typing skills?
This administration really has gone back to the basics, and that's really what we pride ourselves on, that with all the big picture thinking and all the innovation and embracing AI, we know that the building blocks of learning start with strong literacy foundation. And so the science of reading and going back to phonics and phonemic awareness and reading comprehension, that is so important. And so I think that we have already started that work. Again, I'm going to ask our our chief academic officer to please talk about that. But I want to note that that has been the cornerstone of this administration, because we know that in order for our students to do the big innovative things that we expect them to do, it is essential that they have these foundational skills that are going to lead them to do these great, big, bold careers that we're setting them up for. So Dr. Pate.
Thank you, Chancellor. So I think what's important to note is one of the reasons why we are shifting to science of reading based curriculums is so that we can go back to the basics. I think many of the adults in this room can't specifically say how and when they learn to read, but I think that we can remember those basics like, right? We remember that about how we learn to read and the sounds and phonics and the building blocks that are essential to ensure that students are good readers and to ensure that we grew to be good readers. So the curriculums that we have adopted take us back to those basic skills, making sure that students have strong foundations connected to reading, but also have at their core an understanding of how blends work so that they can read not just the books that are in their classrooms, but as they're out for me, when you're shopping, new words, things like that, you can bring sounds and words and letters together to form really new words, which really take us into not only just the English language, but also the world of language across countries that help students be able to be just proficient and strong. So yes, as the chancellor said, we really are taking learning back to some of the basic cores that we know work, hence the science of reading and how students read.
Yeah, and here in District 25, as I mentioned, the first area that we were really focused on was early childhood instruction and promoting that the opportunity for all of our children to learn to read by the time they get into third grade. And there are 3 programs here in District 25 that we emphasize. The first and foremost is what we refer to as Hegarty. Hegarty is a phonemic awareness program so that our children get to learn the sounds that letters make. Foundations, which is about making sure that our children are able to associate those letter sounds with the actual symbols of the words, allowing for that decoding and encoding so that our children are able to write what it is that they see and hear. So when we're thinking about going back to the basics, is around building some of those foundational skills. They begin in our schools with those programs. And what we have seen because of that over the last 3 years is improvement in our children's ability to read, as evidenced by more children being on or above grade level by the time, with Acadians, by the time they finish second grade, with the goal of them being readers as third graders. So we are seeing evidence that that the work that we are doing is improving some outcomes for our children.
This is also a question from the audience. What is your specific knowledge of School District 25 and its unique needs and concerns?
So what I know about District 25 is that sustainable leadership is a really important part of the district. We know that one of the chiefs who we stole from this district is now making sure that she's supporting a number of districts. But what was important about that is that we felt confident in taking her away from this district and making sure that the rest of the city could benefit from her because there was a strong pipeline of leadership here. And that's huge. And what I deeply appreciate about this district is that form of leadership is what we want to see across the city. Because when we look at outcomes and we merely say a leader has done well because the outcomes are amazing, but then we pull the leader away and things start to shift and they start to decline, that's a sign of a weakness in leadership. And what I do know is that this district continues to shine. Our superintendent is doing amazing work. This district really reflects diversity. When we talk about diversity, and I'm saying this as a Latina, we often really think about just our Black and brown children in underserved communities, but this district truly is diverse. There are so many languages here, so many ethnicities, so many backgrounds, so many people from so many different walks of life, and you all come together to really prioritize your children's education and a strong partnership between the community and your district and school leaders. Your outcomes are an example for so many other districts across the city. And so what I know about you is that you are an incredible district that has learned to work together to build sustainable leadership, to really prioritize both the foundational and the innovative learning that we want to happen, and that you're really a model for what we want for other districts.
I believe this is the last questions of the evening. There's been several questions about reading. So my questions is about math. How are we ensuring children being on grade level with math? Can we add electronic, computer technology, robotics, and STEM programs to the math curriculum?
We already have a number of these programs across the city and really amazing practices that we are highlighting. We have been and we continue to highlight across the city. But again, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Pate.
I want to add that at the heart of ensuring that we have strong mathematicians across the district really lives in our intervention. So as students, and it's something that we don't, I saw your face, it's something that we don't think about, right? We naturally jump to curriculum, but I think it really lives within intervention. So one thing we know across the city is that we do have teachers who are rocking it out in terms of how they provide quality math instruction. On top of that quality math instruction, it's intervention. How we target student skill gaps, and then we teach into those skill gaps, making sure that we teach students that there is more than one way to solve a mathematical problem. We want to push them as critical thinkers, as mathematicians, and we want them to be open to diverse solutions and varied solutions for solving problems. So I think the way that we address that is ensuring that across, not just in District 25, and Superintendent, please, tag in terms of the interventions that exist within the district, but across the city, part of my role is really shoring up our intervention, our MTSS structures, and ensuring that every school has a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 intervention program and process that is strong and viable for students that support them across all content areas, inclusive of mathematics.
Yeah, this is a really important one here for our district. When we first started talking this evening, I mentioned mathematics as being an important priority for us to grow in. And there are two things that we're really paying attention to here in district. One is around mathematics routines inside of our classrooms so that our kids become flexible thinkers around what is the math problem actually asking. So when I think about this, I have an 8th grader, as I mentioned to you, very procedural in nature in terms of how he goes about solving problems. The difficulty at times with procedural math understanding is when you change that problem, can you organize your thinking well enough in order to respond? And oftentimes this is a struggle that my son winds up having because he hasn't developed enough of those concepts to support his thinking. So what we're really attending to here in district is a focus on math routines, which allows our kids to think about mathematics in a more flexible way, but also the use of what we refer to as a 3-read protocol to support problem solving, making sure that our kids are intentional around what is this problem actually asking, what are the quantities that are present, and then how do we establish a plan of action to actually solve. Oftentimes, our kids across levels wind up just jumping into the problem before they actually really understand what it's asking. So we're having our kids really slow down through this process to think through what the mathematics is before they start responding so that they are engaging in a more proficient manner. This is all in concert with our expectations around promoting Regents readiness for our learners by the time they get into 8th grade. The goal is that our kids are ready to go, and we can't do that absent providing them with some of those foundational skills that are necessary, which math routines and the 3-read strategies are intended to support.
Thank you. So at this time, I just want to thank the audience for your attendance this evening, and I'm going to actually turn it over to our Chancellor for her closing remarks.
Whenever I join communities in their district, it's always a learning experience for me. The questions you ask, the issues you raise, they are always feedback to my team and me on where we need to do better, where we need to tweak and gain better understanding. So first of all, I want to thank you for your participation. I want to thank you for your thoughtful questions. I also want to encourage you to please attend our borough listening tours. We do have one in each borough, and it is really important to us that we continue to hear your voices. And what's unique about the setup of that is there will be a protocol at each table to really work through issues that are concerning you in alignment to the 3 commitments. So you can raise those questions as a group, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to raise additional issues and concerns. We are not going to walk away from those rooms and just hear you and say, okay, well, they raised that concern or they complained about A, B, and C and never respond. We're actually compiling the data from those listening tours so we can identify trends and patterns and then turn back to all of you a report on what we learned. So what did we learn from your comments and your concerns? And this is why attendance is so important, because that report is going to serve as the foundation of a strategic plan for our team to get things done. We are not going to be able to solve everything in a short amount of time, and I will never overpromise and underdeliver. But what I will tell you is that we very much know that there are issues we need to pay attention to, but we cannot define those issues without your support and your input. So please join us. Please have your voices heard. Please support us in creating this report so we can have a strategic plan to better serve you. In my role as chancellor, I see myself as of service to you. It's not for me to make decisions without you. In order for my team and me to really deliver, we need to know how we can be better for you and how we can support you in your communities. And this is the type of attendance that it takes for that to happen. So thank you.
So thank you again all for participating tonight, for your questions and concerns, and for engaging in authentic dialogue with the Chancellor. Thank you for being here and allowing the CEC to advocate on your behalf. Have a good night, everyone.